Hello, I'm Pat Truman, the President and CEO of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the unveiling of the 2019 Dirty Dozen list. And a special welcome to the press that is with us today and online. Welcome, too, to our donors who could be with us and to the many supporting organizations who have joined us. This is the 7th year of the Dirty Dozen list. Nothing gets results in the battle against sexual exploitation like the Dirty Dozen list. We have seen remarkable victories in the hotel industry, in retail chains, in government, and in various other areas. Thanks to the Dirty Dozen list and to all those who participate in this program. As part of our presentation today, we will have 3 of our senior staff speak to you. Dawn Hawkins, our Senior Vice President and Executive Director, Haley Halverson, who is Vice President for Advocacy and Outreach, and Lisa Thompson, who is Vice President for Policy and Research. Speaking first will be Haley Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Truman. All right. Thank you all so much, as Mr. Truman said, for those attending, both in person and online. I'm so excited that there are so many people who are ready to rally around a simple but really important idea, which is that no corporation or mainstream entity should profit from or facilitate sexual exploitation. Unfortunately, many well-established brands and organizations in America do just that. And so since 2013, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation has published the Dirty Dozen list, which is really an activism tool that gives the power back to individuals to speak out against corporatized sexual exploitation. People can take a part with the Dirty Dozen list by taking online actions, from sending emails to speaking out on social media. In today's world, corporations drive our culture. They influence how people communicate, what we wear, and the kind of information that we receive. So when a company makes a change away from sexually exploitive policies, it actually has a ripple effect that influences countless of lives. The Dirty Dozen list, luckily, has a track record of incredible success, uniting individuals around a focused target to create monumental change. For example, we've had policies with Google where we got Google to stop linking ads to pornographic content. This has made the internet a far safer place for children and individuals who just don't want to be unintentionally exposed to pornography. We've also had victories with Hilton Worldwide and many other hotel chains as well, so that they are no longer selling pornographic movies on demand in their hotel rooms. This has actually impacted 2 million hotel rooms around the world. And one survivor of sex trafficking told us that she used to be sex trafficked in these hotels, and the men would make her watch the pornography on demand. And when she realized that the hotels had stopped selling that pornography, she felt like maybe someone out there actually cared about her. We had a great victory with Walmart where they stopped sharing Cosmopolitan magazine in their checkout aisles, so there's one less drop of dehumanizing and sexually objectifying media bombarding us as we go throughout our day. Also at the Department of Defense, we were able to get them to stop selling pornography magazines on Army, Air Force, and Navy bases. This is really significant because, as the CDC acknowledged just this week, pornography can be linked to sexual violence. And so we believe that as we're trying to tackle the issue of military sexual assault, we need to do that in a holistic way by acknowledging this. Most recently, we have a new victory that I'm very excited to share about with CVS. In the course of preparing for the Dirty Dozen list, we reached out to several retailers asking if they would commit to removing Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue from their checkout aisles. This is something that we've asked retailers to do for years, and this year, CVS responded and said that it is a new policy of theirs, active since early 2018. A senior director told me, quote, "We share your organization's concerns about female objectification, which is one of the reasons why CVS Pharmacy created new standards for beauty imagery in our stores. We want to publicly thank CVS for this commitment to social responsibility, which is especially important this year because we've placed the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue on the 2019 Dirty Dozen list." If there was an Olympic gold medal for sexual objectification, Sports Illustrated would take the gold. This magazine sends the message that women's bodies are for public consumption, that these images, they're not about empowerment at all. They're actually about feeding male sexual entitlement and the mega corporations that are profiting off of hypersexualizing women. We have to recognize that women who have achieved remarkable athletic feats do not deserve to be put back into the box of male sexual accessibility in order to promote body positivity or empowerment. This is a growing cultural recognition. For example, Ada Hegerberg, the world's best female soccer player, was asked to twerk on stage after she received a 2018 award. The host was widely condemned for these obvious sexist overtones that sought to focus on Hegerberg's sexuality instead of her accomplishments. Sports Illustrated's swimsuit issue is basically the magazine equivalent to this scandal. Women of all shapes and sizes and ages deserve more than to be reduced to body parts for men to visually consume. So we ask you to join us in contacting retailers like Target, Walgreens, and Safeway to ask them to join CVS's example and to permanently remove Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue from their checkout lines. And with that, I would like to welcome Dawn Hawkins to discuss a few other Dirty Dozen List targets.
Okay. Netflix is one of the targets in 2019. Netflix has become a staple of at-home entertainment, and they have more than 51 million subscribers in the United States. The streaming platform provides hours of entertainment with both existing and original programming, but a Netflix subscription also includes sexually graphic and degrading content. We have three concerns with Netflix specifically that we would like the mega company to address. One, Netflix often produces media portraying gratuitous nudity, graphic sex acts, and even graphic depictions of sexual assault. With over 300 original productions ranging from serious dramas to laugh-out-loud comedies to even animation, Netflix still puts most of their money for advertising original shows towards their rated TV MA productions, which is the mature audiences only. These productions frequently contain graphic sex scenes, nudity, and violence. Our team of researchers looked into 10 of the top original Netflix titles which they promote, and we found that 9 out of 10 of their features depicted online sex scenes, and 80% of those titles displayed explicit nudity in their pilot programs. Part of the problem with this is that the material with the sexually graphic and violent scenes is often placed right next to child-themed content as well. And so there's really hardly any way to keep this content separated unless a parent were to turn on the parental controls, which leads us to our second concern, which is that the parental controls are inadequate. Even 3-year-olds are able to navigate out of the parental control protected safe space on Netflix, as Netflix does not supply any way to lock down the parental controls. We are also concerned with the app rating for Netflix. Netflix has rated itself on app stores as suitable for ages 4+. And we know that this is a seriously misleading rating considering the high rate of content on Netflix which contain these gratuitous nudity and extreme depictions of sexual assault. Let me just highlight 2 specific shows that we take issue with. Popular show called 13 Reasons Why, and multiple episodes depicts graphic sexual assaults showing nudity of actors who are supposed to be teenagers. There's also another show called Baby, a Netflix original, which follows a group of teenagers on their quest to buck social norms through prostitution. But this show is based on a real-life sex trafficking case of minors, and it portrays underage prostitution, which by definition is sex trafficking, as an edgy coming-of-age story, glamorizing trafficking of some of our most vulnerable. The second target that I want to discuss is Google. And while we thank Google for a number of improvements that they've made over the years, Haley mentioned some of these earlier, we need to recognize that Google has failed to prioritize the digital well-being of its users through Google Chromebooks, which are used in schools, through Google Images, and YouTube. Starting first with Google Images, we've long been concerned by the material that populates through Google Images. For years, we have asked Google to make the safe search feature much more noticeable so that parents and others concerned with blocking this material can turn it off. And we sincerely thank Google for just doing that this past year. They took our suggestions and they placed the safe search feature in the top right corner of Google Images. We congratulate them and we count this as a tremendous step forward. However, there's so much bad content being pulled in to Google Images, often directly from hardcore pornography websites, that we also have to point out that that's not enough. If a child were to look up the term sex in Google Images, which surely countless children are doing because as adults we're often so afraid to bring that topic up, kids are going to be exposed within just a fraction of a second to thousands of hardcore pornographic images. These images are depicting sex acts, often with a focus on the genitalia. Many of the images that populate with just the term sex depict group gangbangs, depicting rape. And this is what our young people are seeing when they're simply just looking to understand what a term means. I will highlight that a number of years ago, if somebody were to look up the term water sports, users were bombarded with pornography depicting urination. And I just want to point out how many young kids were looking up that word, likely expecting to get pictures of water skiing or snowboarding or swimming. When our ally brought this to Google, they immediately changed that. And now you do see images of water skiing, swimming, and snowboarding. We know that Google can fix their algorithms in this case. YouTube is very similar to Google Images, with a lot of really sexually explicit and sexually violent content regularly uploaded. The problem is that YouTube fixes problems ad hoc whenever they receive concentrated media attention, but they're doing very little to proactively monitor or restrict inappropriate content. And they're forcing YouTube's users, us, to go through a rigorous process if we want to report any content for removal. Lastly, I want to highlight Chromebooks. There are 30 million students worldwide, 70 million educators and students who are using G Suite for Education and Chromebooks. While this better access to technology brings immeasurable benefit to the learning environments of youth today, it is essential that parents, schools, and developers like Google maintain the safety and security of the environments kids are pushed into. Google does provide measures for system-wide subscribers like schools to filter and prevent certain content from access on Google devices. But the problem is that many of our schools' IT administrators are very confused by the process of turning these on and monitoring them. And so as a result, students are often using their school-assigned devices to access material with hardcore pornography. And often it's only after an incident where students have showed other students this material, or young kids are developing dependencies to pornography, that the administrators and parents are even realizing that this is happening. We would argue that Google should and must assist schools further by default turning on the filtering tools and setting them at a level that would block most, if not all, pornographic content, and then allow parents and teachers to opt in and review and decrease those filters if needed. The third that I want to highlight is massage envy. From Hollywood, Capitol Hill, Silicon Valley, and beyond, the Me Too movement has revealed the prevalence of sexual harassment and assault in our society. And this is also happening at our local massage studios, too. Massage envy has been and is being sued by hundreds of women for failing to take appropriate measures when a massage therapist sexually harasses or assaults a client. Among a number of poor policies, the company has hidden clauses in customer agreements which force women to surrender their rights, and many former employees report being trained to do all in their power not to encourage police to show up at their locations. Massage envy does not even require reporting of suspected assaults to the Massage Therapy Board, and a number of cases against massage envy involve prior complaints of sexual assault by customers to management, and them doing nothing about it. This has resulted in perpetrators continuing to prey on vulnerable clients. Massage Envy is the largest chain in America with more than 20,000 therapists in 1,200 locations. They have long known about the problem of assaults on their tables, and yet they've only just recently made serious policy improvements to try to curb and deal with these issues. We applaud their progress, but we deplore the length of time that it took for such movement to be made. And we call on Massage Envy to take a stance of complete transparency and accountability when it comes to further addressing these horrors. Today with us, we have Retna. She is courageously speaking up about her traumatic experiences while receiving services at a Massage Envy in Piscataway, New Jersey. Retna, can I welcome you up here?
Today, I have decided to come forwards, not to tell you a story, because you've all heard stories before, rather share with you the pain and the scar which has left the hole in my heart as well as my soul. This is also so with other men and women who have gone to Massage Envy. I can only hope what I share with you will be something you can take with you and tell others, so that who are not able to speak or are afraid to speak can come forwards and stand with us, but especially for them to know that they're not alone. Sexual assault leaves scars that never seem to mend, and many of us will carry them forever. Nevertheless, after the initial shock, self-pity, tears, frustrations subside, I'm ready to talk about my experience at Massage Envy. Massage Envy, like many large corporations, is naturally driven by profits. Unfortunately, it is clear that Massage Envy has chosen to protect its own profits and brands at the expenses of women like myself. Massage Envy holds itself out to the public as a safe place for therapeutic massage and stress relief. In fact, Massage Envy advertises itself as a safe place that will leave you feeling better than you would without services. Clients are conditioned to feel safe and secure, just like doctors' offices or medical clinics. This is why men and women feel comfortable entering into a vulnerable environment, that they are in various stages of undress. But if you have noticed that doctors' offices and medical clinics, there's always a nurse present or a third party present. Also, in many of these larger spas, they give their clients clothing to wear from completely undressing. This is partly because they want you to feel safe and comfortable, and they respect you as a person. This is not the case at Massage Envy. Despite of the fact that sexual assaults are happening at an alarming rate at Massage Envy's locations nationwide and in out of the country as well, it was at my third visit at Massage Envy that I was sexually assaulted. The closed door seemed so far away. All I wanted to do was pass out. Frozen and confused and shocked and vulnerable, all I wanted to do was run. And the last word out of the therapist's mouth was, "Can I get a cash tip?" I was lost for words. I was lost. Fear of being judged, I was afraid to tell anyone following my assault. But I finally did, because I know that the actions of this company need to stop. They need to protect their clients, inform their customers, and be truthful or transparent with the public about the problem in their company, so that they could have made informed decisions regarding the safety, instead of Massage Envy did something altogether opposite. Making the decisions for me I deserve better. All the other women and men who have been assaulted in Massage Envy deserve better. And the male and female customers in the future deserve better. Today I stand in front of you to ask Massage Envy, are you listening? If so, show us. Sexual assault at Massage Envy locations is not just a U.S. problem. As Massage Envy is all over the world, sexual assault has no preference, no gender, race, or age. It holds everyone hostage. Most of all today, it's time to stand up and shout that we will not tolerate any corporation, especially Massage Envy, to take an advantage of us to make us victims. To Massage Envy, I say, it does not matter how many franchises you have or how much money you make yourself as a promotion, that you are in a safe environment for customers. What matters is what you do to make things better so we can trust again. The excuses of could've, should've, would've no longer work. And those phrases must be replaced with can do, what will do, and how it will be done. For now, I say thank you for listening, and please take it home and discuss it and stand tall and stand firm. We are people who deserve respect and dignity.
Of Massage Envy, we ask for a number of things. Number one, we want them to place signs in each Massage Envy informing customers of their right to stop a massage at any point where they feel uncomfortable, and of their right to make a police report if they feel a masseuse has committed a sexual misconduct or sexually harassed or assaulted them. We ask Massage Envy to publicly commit to institute strict internal policies to report any case of customer discomfort with a masseuse regarding sexual misconduct, harassment, or assault to the Massage Therapy Board. We also ask that Massage Envy create an annual public transparency report in tandem with multiple advocacy organizations, similar to the one being created by Uber, which acknowledges the scope of the problem of sexual misconduct within their establishments. We want them to make this report available on the Massage Envy app on their website and in emails to new clients. We also request that Massage Envy publicly commit to stop forcing customers to waive their right to bring forward claims against Massage Envy. When people are placing their bodies in the hands of a doctor, a dentist, or a masseuse, they're putting trust in them. The nature of massage, where individuals are more vulnerable and trusting than usual, they're nearly undressed, they're alone, they're expecting relaxation. It contributes to immense trauma when the trust is broken by sexual harm. We do recognize that Massage Envy has begun working to make improvements, but we are calling on them to take its policies a step beyond mere damage control. With that, Lisa Thompson will talk about 3 other targets.
Roku. It's a leading media streaming company. It provides customers with devices, enabling them to stream media such as television programs and movies. But unfortunately, its open platform devices also allow anyone to create new so-called private channels. Capitalizing on this backdoor, the pornography industry has created hundreds of private pornography channels accessible via Roku devices. But these channels are anything but private. The fact that Roku leaves its back door open to pornographers is applauded by the pornography industry, which widely advertises Roku on its various platforms and at pornography industry conventions. In fact, pornographers has even gone so far as to offer people free Roku devices with taglines like put porn on your TV.
Pornography channels on Roku depict teen, incest, slavery, and violent themes. This confederation between Roku and the pornography industry stands in sharp contrast to practices of other streaming device industry leaders, such as Apple TV and Amazon Fire TV, which rightly exclude pornography from their platforms. So today, we are calling on Roku to stop streaming content that normalizes the behaviors and attitudes that fuel rape culture. Twitter. Most of us know Twitter as a major source of breaking news. But did you also know that it facilitates prostitution and sex trafficking and hosts vast quantities of hardcore pornography? Twitter is being used to advertise prostituted persons and sex trafficking victims via tweets that feature pornographic images or hashtags that, for instance, that go to sites like webcam sites. Sometimes these tweets include offers to meet in person for so-called escorting services, and sometimes they ask users to follow and pay for nude images, videos, and live streaming. Law enforcement officials have documented that pimps and sex traffickers often coerce sex trafficking or child sexual abuse victims to make such advertising posts, or, in other instances, create the posts themselves in the victim's name. Such activity was among that happened to bring, that was on Backpage.com, the notorious classified advertising website that was recently shut down by the Department of Justice for knowingly facilitating sex trafficking. Further, Twitter has come under fire for the vast amount of cyber-based sexual harassment, revenge pornography, and even sexually exploited images of children on its platform. Now, we know that pornography is inherently tied to cyber-based sexual harassment, whether in the form of revenge pornography, being spammed with pornography, or having one's virtual identity co-opted by pornography hashtags. But yet, what happens when Tumblr announced that they would no longer allow pornographic content on their platform? Thousands of users flocked to Twitter, attracted by its virtually non-existent standards. Twitter is filled with pornography that supports rape myths, normalizes adult, teen, and incest-themed exploitation, and reinforces degrading, racially charged sexual stereotypes. What the public needs to know is that today's pornography is pervasive and it's damaging countless lives. Its role in shaping the attitudes and behaviors that fuel the crisis of sexual assault on college campuses, sexting scandals, other forms of image-based sexual abuse and assault, sexting, child sexual abuse, compulsive pornography consumption, and more is very clear. As a result, our nation is suffering from a public health crisis fueled by a widespread distribution of adult hardcore pornography. The term public health crisis is used broadly to define both physical and social problems from cigarette smoking to bullying, and is unequivocally applies to the issue of pornography because pornography is a serious, harmful problem that affects individuals and groups beyond their capacity to address alone. And so in view of this sweeping landscape of sexual harm, we are calling on Twitter to do its duty to create a safe online space that protects the dignity and well-being of its online community and society at large. And now to my favorite on this year's list, the state of Nevada. Nevada is the only state in the country that legally sanctions the buying and selling of women for sex. The most emblematic measure of women's true status in any society is reflected in its prostitution laws. Are women public sexual commodities under the law or not? In Nevada, of course, the answer to that question is yes. Since 1971, Nevada has given its rural counties the legal right to decide whether or not to legalize brothel-based prostitution, and as many as 10 of its counties have chosen to do just that. Under this legal framework, women are consumables. Like all systems of prostitution, Nevada's sexploitation industry has a predatory dependence on women facing dire economic circumstances and with, oftentimes with childhood histories of neglect and sexual abuse. Nevada's own top sexual exploiter, the now deceased Dennis Hoff, demonstrated this connection well when in 2015 he auctioned off what he called America's next top bunny ranch virgin, who just happened to be a 20-year-old college student seeking to help her family because their uninsured house had burned down. I also recall an occasion when I visited Nevada while researching the harms of prostitution, and I pulled up to meet with a roadside vendor who was set up not far from one of Nevada's legal brothels. And that particular brothel, it's very haunting to me when I think back on this occasion, but it was a ramshackle, run-down trailer set way back down on a dirt road off of a major highway in what seemed like the middle of absolutely nowhere. And there was a giant sign, though, along the highway to ensure that the truckers who were driving by didn't miss this brothel. And as I spoke to the vendor, I asked him a few questions about the brothel. And he told me that he knew the madam since she would sometimes stop at his roadside market. And he shared with me that the madam liked to recruit women to work in her brothel from the local jail. He explained that when some women were released from jail, that they had no place to go, or that in other cases, the madam would pay their bond. So seizing on this acute vulnerability, the madam lured women with the promise of a place to live and or paid their bonds on the condition, of course, that they provided sex to her customers. This is the very essence of sexual coercion. In addition, Nevada's normalization of prostitution as work for women has turned the state into a magnet for sex traffickers and prostitution tourists. As a result, demand outstrips supply, and the statewide illegal sex trade, including sex trafficking in Nevada, is the largest in the country. In fact, Nevada has the largest illegal sex trade in the country adjusted for population. It's 63% higher than the next highest state of New York and double that of Florida. In the age of Me Too, it's important that people understand that the exchange of money or something of value to obtain a sex act is itself a form of sexual coercion. Because all prostitution is fundamentally a form of sexual coercion, there is no such thing as consensual prostitution. Thus, prostitution is fundamentally antithetical to any notion of sexual responsibility or sexual ethics. The truth is that sexual objectification, coercion, violence, as well as racism and socioeconomic disadvantages and misogyny are inextricable from prostitution anytime, anywhere. I'd also like to point out that local communities profiting from prostitution by tourist revenues, like pimps, are complicit in sexual exploitation. So in closing, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation is calling on Nevada citizens and its elected officials to recognize that sexual exploitation is nobody's job. It's time for Nevada to reform its prostitution laws by criminalizing those who sexually exploit others for pleasure and profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So now I'm up here to chat with you guys about two more targets, and then we'll break and have a time for Q&A. Steam is an online video game distributor with over 35 million users who are minors under the age of 18. And Steam has landed itself on the Dirty Dozen list for the second year in a row. Why? Well, because it sells a host of pornographic video games and hypersexualized games, including games with themes of blackmailing girls to have sex, having sex with childlike characters, performing lewd sexual acts in front of women who are non-consenting, rape, stripping, and more. In June of 2018, after being placed on the Dirty Dozen list and further activism by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, Steam temporarily began to make moves to actually remove rape-themed games from its platform. However, it received some backlash from gamers. And then, instead of standing firm, Steam decided to institute a new policy to, quote, allow everything into the Steam store, except for things that are illegal or trolling. As soon as this new policy launched, the number of games tagged for nudity doubled from approximately 700 games to around 1,400 games in just 4 months. And now there are over 2,000 games with this tag. Even when users have parental controls and filters on their platforms, they can access video games that clearly portray penetrative sex acts with just 2 clicks. In our current Me Too culture, Steam has made a cowardly choice to shirk its corporate and social responsibility to remove sexually violent and exploitive games from its platform. We are calling on you to contact Steam executives, to publicly call Steam out on social media, and to send the message that the gamification of sexual assault, unclear consent, and objectification of women is unacceptable in our society. Another target on this year's Dirty Dozen list is United Airlines. Now, United Airlines has been criticized before in the past. They've received a lot of public scrutiny for a variety of incidences that clearly reveal inconsistencies between their policies and how they're training air crews to act, from notoriously forcing a pet into an overhead compartment where it died, to physically dragging a doctor off of a plane. Now, United Airlines is under public scrutiny yet again for systemic outbreaks of inappropriate crew reactions to sexual harassment on their airplanes. Sexual harassment, of course, includes, but is not limited to, unwanted sexual advances, including physical actions, speech, and in-flight pornography use. While cases of these actions have occurred on virtually every airline, United Air crews have apparently received especially ineffective training. For example, Sarah Nelson, a United Airlines flight attendant and president of the union, told CNN, quote, "In my 22 years as a flight attendant, I have never taken part in a conversation, in training or otherwise, about how to handle sexual harassment or sexual assault." CNN continued to state that while policies exist, Nelson says that if they are not elevated in the airline's training, flight attendants are at a loss for what to do when addressing these behaviors, end quote. Further, United Airlines appears to chronically be ill-prepared to address the growing problem of viewing pornography on airplanes, which creates a culture of sexual harassment. This has included United Airlines employees failing to intervene in several cases of men performing sexual acts on themselves while watching pornography, including one case where a woman reported this and the crew joked, "Well, what perfume were you wearing?" In another case, just last month, one woman reported to Nkosi that she was on an international flight on United in January of 2019, saw a man watching pornography on the flight, and she said the crew did nothing to stop him. In addition to this, United Airlines has inconsistently blocked nudity and sex scenes from in-flight movies. While they occasionally do block these things or edit them out, United does not do this in every case, and instead relies on a discretion clause on their website asking passengers to be mindful of children that are maybe seated near them. However, we know that planes are enclosed spaces and children are going to need to get up and stretch or go to the bathroom. And so no matter where you are seated on a plane, if you're viewing explicit material, it is at risk for children or just other passengers who are unwilling to see it, seeing it. While most airlines have a policy on paper about these issues, United is not adequately training their staff. When this lack of clarity and training exists, this leaves passengers vulnerable and isolated to endure a toxic, sexually harassing environment without recourse until it's over. It is vital that United Airlines institutes in-person annual trainings for flight crews with tactics to respond to the full spectrum of sexual exploitation, and these trainings must be informed by experts in the field. And with that, this is the time when we all need to stand up and actually take ownership of the Dirty Dozen list. This is not a project that's just put on by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. It's a project that's fueled by you. by individuals reaching out to these corporations on social media and emailing them. And the amazing thing is this does make a difference. Remember, Hilton Worldwide told us that they had received 1,000 email complaints in 1 month because of this list. When an individual voice might sometimes feel quiet, when we join together and target our voices in specific directions, it becomes a roar that's demanding better for our society, that's demanding social responsibility, corporate responsibility around these issues. And if we all join in and go to dirtydozenlist.com to partake in this list, then I know that we'll have even more victories yet to come this year. Thank you very much.